I say this to shame you. I'm going to start talking like that. That's great. Good old St. Paul. Again, very upset with the young church in Corinth is doing. Just kind of give you a little cultural context here. The Roman court system, let's just say, was just pretty corrupt, okay, and was well known. So if you had money, you had wealth, you had power, your prestige, you were able to usually win your favor in your court. And so often the wealthy people would use that against the poor, middle class, or even poorer people. They would take them to court where they would know that the judge would side in their favor. Usually, what we call a crispy handshake, right? You shake a hand and there's some money in there, that type of thing. And yet that's what the fellow Christians were doing to each other. The wealthier Christians were taking the poorer ones to the Roman courts, to the Roman judges, where they know that they would have, the judge would side with their favor. It was an act of injustice. And that one of the reasons why St. Paul is so upset here. So what does he say? Why don't you just settle it amongst yourselves? Which, again, was also a common practice. That's what also infuriated him. It wasn't like St. Paul was asking him to go above and beyond here, and at least in this case. It was very common just for groups of people, and the Jews had that privilege to settle matters within themselves. And yet they weren't doing it. Why? Well, because the rich were taking advantage of the poor. Again, he's very frustrated with this. But that's not even the issue. The issue actually is much deeper for St. Paul. The issue is this: why are there disputes among you in the first place? That's really what's at the heart of the matter here. Why are people, fellow Christians, fighting and disputing with one another? That's the problem. Because at the very end of the passage, St. Paul reminds them of what their identity is. That you have washed yourselves, you were sanctified and justified in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ in the Spirit of God. Justified, washed in the person of Jesus Christ. And yet you act as if you don't know him. Later on in this letter, St. Paul is going to give a beautiful discourse on that virtue of charity, which I think kind of like that discourse comes from passages like this. The Christians in Corinth don't know what real and authentic love is. Again, that's also why he, in this passage, kind of goes over the list of injustices. Many of them deal with that of the sixth commandment. Again, something that was very prevalent in the community of Corinth. It's almost as if they're baptized into Jesus Christ, but the spirit and attitude of the city they live in has not left them. They still partake in the culture that is around them, which is idolatrous and against what true, authentic love is. It hasn't sunk into the Corinthians yet. And I think that, again, that's why St. Paul is so frustrated. And so with us too. How do we act within our own community, our own Christian community? Now, here at St. Catherine's, we don't have little squabbles and people aren't arguing and bickering with each other. That's not a problem here. In other parishes, it is, okay? But not here. No, of course, it does happen here. The evil one is always going to find his way in there to kind of disrupt things. Disrupt our true and authentic calling. We are beloved sons and daughters of Jesus Christ. Through him, may we also know and love how he loved, which also required a lot of sacrifice, a lot of the idea of what giving of oneself over to the other, putting aside our pride and our ego, and being humble in the service of one another. May God bless you.